Hi, so this is another comfy video in my basic series, and it's quite a difficult subject, this one. In painting, I was an illustrator for 40 years doing concept work and designing things. It would come under the heading of composition, really. And the default composition for AI images is what you see here. It's a nice image, it's got nice qualities, I like it as an image, and it's fine for a portrait. But the figure is absolutely dead centre in the picture. There's another one here, and you see again the figure is absolutely dead centre aligned in the image. And most, not all, but most AI images you make will have this horizon halfway here. Horizon is smack on the halfway. And if you look, that's just about in the centre of the picture. And the subject's in the middle of the picture, and the waterfall's in the middle. So everything is very symmetrical and centred. Even on wider scenes like this, our castle and our bridge are centred, even in an illustrated painted style like this one. And compositionally, that is not a great idea. Here's one that's a little less focused that way, but again, the main focus is pretty much in this little zone here. But many of the best compositions would be in a zone over here with less active stuff on one side, would make a more satisfying composition. Here we go again. The figure is a little bit to the left here, but you see this arch is dead in the centre. Here's an extreme example, but I think you can see where I'm headed. It would be nice to have better control over exactly where your subject is in the frame of the picture. So in photography it would be called framing. In painting it's called composition. So what I'm going to do is go through the various ways in which you can take control of that with your comfy images. So we'll go to the first one now. So we'll start very simple. We'll start man on a motorcycle, which is our subject, city street, which is our background, and we'll say something about the day, evening light. Will be enough. So that's without any control at all. Let's see what we get. And there he is, quite a nice image. In AI, this image will always appear in this area, in a sort of square in the centre here. So what if we want him coming into shot from the right? So if we say on the right, so as you see, he hasn't really moved. It's still a nice picture. Is it the city street on the right? So maybe we'll say on the left. And as you see, absolutely nothing changed. It's quite a nice image. So this tells you that prompting for position is pretty much impossible. So the first way of getting the man into from position, the simplest, take out that. If we want to bring him closer, we could say red hair, sunglasses. So if we run that, this is the same seed throughout. So look at what effect that has had. And this shows a thing that's common to all AI generation. The more you describe something, the closer it will come towards you. So that is quite useful. So you know to bring him closer, you could describe something about him. So to push him away again, it could be on a red motorcycle, headlight on, and we'll prompt that. So there you go, he's pushed a little bit back. If we said more about the motorbike, that would have the same effect. If we said more about the street, that would have the same effect. But I think you can see that it's a pretty crude way of doing it. So if we remove the excess. So with these, we have four weights maybe. The man, the motorcycle, the city street. So the other way of moving him is just by trying different seeds. So there we are. There's our motorcycle on the right. And generally, this seed will produce a man on the right. But if we start talking about him, he will come right up close. So it's a very uncontrollable way of controlling it. But if this is giving you a nice image, then that's fine. That's one way of doing it. And it'll allow small changes. You might manage to make the motorbike red or the guy wear sunglasses, but if you wanted him to stay at that distance, you would need to say more about the city street. So if I added, so if I said more about the day and the street, and as you see, that's pushed him further away. We've inherited another motorbike, but that's okay. And it's pushed him back and made him less important. So that's one rule you can go on, which is that the more you talk about something, the more it'll dominate the image. So if I said even more about, the shops and the people and everything like that, then the motorcycles would become ever more incidental. However, if we've got an image like this and we really like it, we can't really take it further without everything moving around. So if I say, he's wearing dark glasses and maybe he's a Hell's Angel, or maybe he's a rough tough guy with decals and God knows what, then the whole composition is going to change inside. So what we'll have a look at next is the other way of controlling position, which is just simple image to image. So here we are with an image to image setup. I'm not going to go through, I've got other videos going through image to image, etc. So have a look at those if you don't know how to set this up. So I've taken the latent image out and I've put a load image in. Denoise, which is up here, controls how much notice it takes of this image. So we've got a girl on a motorcycle here, but that shouldn't matter too much. So if I have this right down at 20, it'll take a lot of notice of this. Up at 80, it won't take a great deal of notice. So I want it to take some notice of this, so I want to take some of the lighting from that maybe. But I want the motorcyclist there. So if I start, we'll say 60. And we're still prompting for the man on the motorcycle with the quite busy city street. So we'll cue prompt and see what we get. There we go. So we've got our man on the city street, and he's pretty much where we want him. So at 60, everything has stayed pretty much the same. If we go to 75, and we put in warm evening light, and there we are, the light has warmed up. We've gained an extra motorcyclist, but if you wanted to get rid of the extra motorcyclist, then you would run through a few seeds, and there'll be another seed without a motorcyclist. We'll just do one, but that's always a problem of it putting extra subjects in. So, and as you increase the denoise here, we maybe drop a little bit. Then, of course, the chances of a new friend for our original cyclist will appear. And there we go. We have the shadow of an imaginary motorcyclist. That made me laugh. But I think you can see the way how it works. So next we'll look at how you can reframe this. This composition has been given to you by the AI. So what we'll do, we'll take this image. So we like this image, despite the ghost shadow, and and we'll reframe it so it's closer in on him, and show you how to do that, because you don't have to accept this as your final framing. Okay, here we are, and what I've done is add a very simple image crop, and we're also going to add an image resize. So we go search, image resize. We're going to use that in a bit. So we don't want this to run every time. The seed is fixed, so it shouldn't run this time, but a way to stop it running is to add a group to it, right click, set group to never, and then we can play about with this. So this is what the nodes say as first thing. So what it takes is a 5, 1, 2 chunk top left. So what we want to do is to decide we want it a bit wider. That's quite nice, but I think that's rather nice. So what if we want to sort of we want to move him across, essentially. So if we move, we can't move him this way because there isn't any. Can't move him this way because there's no more picture, so he can't go that way. If we increase on the X here, he's moved across. So we just want the distant street in there moving. So we just want the distant street movie to appear. That looks good. And we could want him down the frame a little bit, so we can move him on the Y. Well, but you see, it just zoomed in, so we can't move him on the Y. That's because the height is 768. If we wanted to move him on the Y, we need to lower this to 680. And now you see he's moved down. And that's as far as he could come down. So, but that's about right. So what we want to do is to resize him, because we've now got a very small image. So we want to upscale him, and it's best to resize him. So if we say his height is 1024 and his width is 768, then we can have a look at how that is. There you go, that looks pretty good. So we've got a reasonable size image to process now. And all we do to process it is to take the image from here, which is this image, drop it into there. And we don't want to change it quite as much, so we'll take the denoise down to. And we can now, we have this image controlling it, say a little bit more about him. So we can give him red hair, and we can give him sunglasses. Now, if you recall, last time we did this, he came up until he was right up close to us. But let's see what happens this time. And there he is. He's got red hair, he's got sunglasses, and he's in the right position as well. So that's the first and most basic way of reframing and positioning your subject in your picture. Next, we'll look at other ways. So we'll look at control nets next, which are another handy way of positioning things if you're not doing image to image. So if you're doing text to image and you want to place things, then a control net can do that for you. So that'll be the next section. So control nets. I've got a separate video on control nets, which you can go and look at for the how to connect them up, etc. So they're in an earlier video, so I'm not going to go through this again. So with control net, you need to pre-process the image. So we've got our chap on the motorcycle there, and this has produced this rather strange looking map. Essentially, what is white is closest to us, what is dark is further away. Now this image will be saved in, you see the preview image? So that image has gone into your temporary folder. So you can now reload that image. And we don't want this to run every time. So we'll give it its own. Now you can link this up directly. I tend not to, because you can mess around with these numbers too. So rather like when we were cropping down here, it's quite nice to have this in a separate thing you can mess about with. So here's our control nets. Again, I put them in groups because I like being tidy. I can't help it. We have added an empty latent image, which is the right size for our original image there. So we now have to hook up the control net, and it's very simple. You go, it's in the conditioning line, so it's in this clip conditioning line. So we go out from conditioning, positive, negative, and then back into the sampler, positive, negative, and that's all plumbed in. And so we need to load. So this is our temp folder in ComfyUI, and there's our depth image. And with exactly the same prompt, we should now get a different image. So here we have it. We have our man in the position we wanted. He's got red hair, he's got his glasses, we've got the dramatic shadows. What's not to like? The other method, which is slightly less of a control, is to use Canny. So we'll do that next. So Canny, as you see here, has its own preprocessor, and there's lots of other ones. There's Scribble, there's Edge. You can play around with them, but these are just two basic ones. So if we run that, we get this very funny drawing. And it's doing the same thing as the depth map, but it's not giving depth information this time. It's giving just positional information. So this image will be saved into our temp image, so we can load it. And there you see, and we need to change the model, because control nets have a model. So we want to change the model to Canny. And let's see if we get a difference. Same, everything else is the same. And here we are again, another image, and as you see, the Canny has worked pretty well. It always seems to do floating wing mirrors on the... Now the advantage of this over image to image is, of course, that we could change our... So we could say that old standard to cyborg, still on a motorcycle. We make the street steampunk. And with this method, this would be harder to do from image to image. So with this method, we should get a different cyclist. Now, as you see, it's had an attempt to do it, and there's a bit of steampunky stuff. The quality has gone down, and it's not really given us what we want. So what we can do is reduce the strength of this, and we'll make its influence stop halfway through. Now, as you reduce the strength, when it gets too low, he's going to move around the pet frame. And there we go. But as you see, with the reduced influence, our composition has changed a lot. So what we could do is just bring the strength up a little bit. Okay, so here we have him back, and we see we've got quite a change now. A few other on motorbikes, but we've got quite a nice feel to the image. So the trick with control nets is you can have too much control. So getting the balance between the strength, how far it influences through the steps. So we have 10 steps. So it is only giving influence until step 5. And you can just run the scheduler up to step 5 and you'll see if it's having the desired effect. If I took the steps down to 4, we might well lose the composition. And there we go, it's still having its effect on 4. But you'll notice that the wreckage and the adherence to the prompt has improved. So it's really getting a balance between the two. So we'll go on to the third method I'm going to cover, which is IP adapter. So here we are with the last of our methods, and this is IP adapter, which if you want details, then there are lots of videos, including from the maker Matteo. He's Latent Vision, I think he's Latent Vision, which will give you all the details, and it's very, very simple to use. So It plugs into the model line. If you follow the model line here, it goes into the IP adapter, then runs all the way through, and then back into the model again. And there's not really a great deal to explain about it. It's not as strong or definitive as ControlNet, but it's got a nice balance of controllability and allowing the model to imagine stuff, I think. So I find it quite useful, especially for text to image stuff. It just gives you a little bit of control to stop it being a completely random generation you have no control over. So I'm going to do another separate video on IP adapters once I've gone through all the various possibilities. There are a lot of variations on them. This is the simplest setup, and this whole setup will be in a workflow you can look at anyway. So this is our input image to show our composition, and it's not going to copy this exactly. That's the difference with IP adapter, is it's going to take general themes from this. It's not like ControlNet going to actually put everything exactly where this image says. So you have several controls on it, which are pretty simple. First of all, the image going in needs to be square. IP adapter doesn't look at any images other than square ones, so it's best to make your image square in the first place. So I just put an image resize in there, and then whatever I put in here is going to be made the right shape. The controls within it are pretty simple. You've got all sorts of different weight types here, and we're obviously going for composition because that's the point of this video, and that's what we're trying to do. Then we have the weight of it, which is just the strength at which it's applied, and the concat is the way it's applied. I won't go into that. You can leave it as it is. And the start at and end at are quite useful because it says when this influence starts. So this influence will start, we have 10 steps. This influence will start during the first step, and then it'll finish on the 7th step. So you've got two ways of altering the strength, and really for each image these strengths and start at and end at, you're going to have to fine-tune them because you'll get quite different results with different settings. And that is it really. We have our same prompt here, and this is the image you get, which is pretty good. I mean, it's got the motorbike on that side. You won't get the same motorbike with adapter, that's the difference. And we have the cars, and we have the buildings, and we have a lot of similarity. The only thing we don't have is the light, but the light's not prompted for. So the great thing with IP adapter is that you can really alter things with your prompt. So it frees up you adding to things with your prompt. So if we add to this evening light and long shadows, then that should have quite a decent effect. We'll run that just to see if I'm telling the truth. Okay, so that's that here back, and as you see, it's changed the image a fair bit. That's the nature of the IP adapter, and so I've only changed a couple of words, and we're in quite a different place, but the general aspects are all the same, aren't they? With IP adapter, text to image, it's definitely an area where you need to go through a few seeds, because to get what you want, you'll have to go through a few seeds. But that's quite a nice image, and you could take that further. So very last thing I'll go through is, of course, you can mix control nets with IP adapter, because they're quite different things, and one is operating on the model line and the other on the conditioning. So if we plumb in our control net here, so the control net, as we said before, goes from the conditioning line. So we go from positive to positive, negative to negative, and then back to the sampler. There we go, that's all plumbed in. I've already made a depth map from the same image that this was made from. We shouldn't need very high strength, so we only want a little bit of extra control. So if we load the depth map in, which will be, as we said before, it will be in your temporary folder. There it is. And check we've got everything right. We have depth, we've got a depth map, and then we want to have a look at the strength. I think the strength can go pretty low because we've got the IP adapter in there as well. We only want to give it a little nudge, nudge in the direction we want. But of course that is something you can play with, and it also, as we said before, has a start. So let's see if that makes a difference. So here we are back. As you see, the control net has had its effect, and our motorcycle is exactly in place. So we've used the control net at very low levels. So there's an aspect of that I quite like. So we could weaken the control net further, and we would be able to get more interesting variations from it. But you see, it's altered the perspective, and it's given that nice tilt to the bike. Okay, I think that's the subject covered to a certain degree anyway. It's a very wide subject, and certainly one that's quite difficult to cover in any detail. But I shall put this basic compositional workshop in as a workflow, and you can have a play with it yourself. Okay, thanks for your attention. I hope that was enjoyable.